friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you are new here, welcome. I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. I put out What's for Dinner videos every Sunday, and this week I have 3 inspirational meals for you again, and I hope that you enjoy them. These 3 meals are all going to be like quick and easy meals, but also not boring, because I've been feeling like so out of time recently, so rushed, and so I've been having to make quicker meals, which for me sucks in a way because I enjoy cooking. Like, it's my decompressing time, it's like my hobby, it's what I enjoy, and it's kind of like my me time, right? So when you don't have time for that, it can feel like frustrating a little bit, because I don't like to eat super boring either, or like feeling like I'm having the same thing over and over. So these recipes are kind of cool because there's things that are a little bit different about them, and hopefully something new for you that you've never had. And I can say I definitely recommend them all, but my favorite is going to be the Philly Cheesesteak Cheesy Bread. It was phenomenal. My boyfriend and I loved it. So if you're going to try any of these 3 recipes, definitely give that a try. Love how easy it is and how delicious. If you have a guy in your life, he's gonna love this. Like, my boyfriend raved about this nonstop. We looked at each other like every bite, like, oh, this is so good. We need this again. So I hope that you enjoy these meals, and let's just get started. This first meal is cheeseburger egg rolls. I'm starting off by dicing up some onion. This is a yellow onion. You can do anywhere from a small to a medium-sized yellow onion. If you don't like onion, you can just leave it out as well. Next, I'm going to be throwing together a sauce that's like a hamburger sauce, kind of like mac sauce. No real measurements here, it's just kind of to taste. So I'm maybe using about a half a cup of mayonnaise and some ketchup, a little bit of mustard, some relish. I use more relish than I probably should have, but it's all good. And just stirring that together first to kind of see what else it needs. I can already tell that it needed more ketchup because it needs more of that like redder tone to it. And then you can season this with other things that you like: salt, pepper, garlic powder. Yeah, this is just a to taste kind of thing, so kind of just taste it along the way and see if you need a little more of anything. Next, you're just going to want to go ahead and brown up 1 pound of ground beef. I am just using my meat chopping tool to break that apart, and you're going to go ahead and season that with whatever seasonings you like. I like the McCormick hamburger seasoning, so I'm using a bunch of that, as well as some garlic powder, a little bit of oregano, and some Worcestershire sauce to bring out that beef flavor. And I'm just going to go ahead and continue to break that apart and let that brown while mixing all those seasonings in there. And once your meat is pretty much has no more pink left to it, you're going to go ahead and add in your chopped up onions, and you're going to let those start to cook down with the meat and let them soften. And once your meat is fully cooked, you're going to want to make sure to drain your grease really well, like as much as you can possibly get out of there, because the grease inside of the egg roll wrappers will kind of make it fall apart if it's too much grease. Next, I went ahead and made an egg wash with 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of water. I whisked that together, and I'm just going to go ahead and brush that along the edges of my egg roll wrappers. This is going to help you stick together all the edges when you fold it up. These are the egg roll wrappers that I went ahead and used. And now you're going to place some of your filling of the meat in the middle. I use anywhere from 3 to 4 of these spoons worth. You don't want to overfill, and yeah, just kind of like eye it, but like make sure you're not overfilling. And I'm going to use cheese for this, and I'm using American cheese. You can use cheddar cheese if that's what you'd like. I just kind of like folded it in half and put a piece across. Actually, I would have preferred it with more cheese, so next time I make these, I'm going to add just the full slice into each one of my egg rolls. And now I'm just folding those up. And to do that, I'm just taking the bottom corner and I'm going to roll it over my filling, and then bring in the side 2 corners to keep the contents from falling out the sides. And then you're just going to roll it basically like you would a burrito. And I'm just going to show you how to do a couple of these, and not all of them, because that will take quite some time. But you get the idea here of just filling it just enough, a little bit of cheese or however much cheese you want, and then just rolling it up. And I'm placing these on my air frying baking sheet because that's where I'm going to be making them, is in the air fryer. And I actually forgot to spray the baking pan here, but you will want to do that is give your air fryer a little coat of oil because you don't want these to stick with them being so delicate and the fact that they could fall apart. But I did have that issue. So now I'm just brushing the tops with some egg wash, and this is going to be my first batch. I had an additional maybe 3 to 4 after this. So in total this made about 11 to 12 of them, and I went ahead and just put those in my air fryer and air fried those at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes total. Just watch them, and you're going to want to flip them about halfway through once they get golden on one side. And as you can see, there's where I struggled with some of them sticking. Some of the oil like came out and kind of coated the pan for me, luckily, and that made it a little bit easier, but of course you don't want them to fall apart, so I'm just kind of using my spatula to help me get them up here. And yeah, you're just gonna put them back in for the remainder of the time so that side can get nice and golden brown, and you can put egg wash or not as well, but they give it that nice like golden and like shiny appearance. Appearance is all the egg wash does, so if you don't have it, don't worry about it. And I'm serving a side salad with this, just garden salad, tomatoes, and some ranch. I figured, like, what do you have on a cheeseburger? You have like lettuce, tomato, stuff like that. So that's what I had as a side with these. Just giving you a little peek of those on the inside. These were beautiful and they tasted amazing. It was kind of like different. So we were like, first we're like, oh, this is really different. And then as you're eating them, you're like, okay, I can get used to this. Like, this is pretty good. It tasted really good and we really enjoyed them. I loved how easy they were and something nice and fun and different. This next meal is Philly Cheesesteak Cheesy Bread, and this one is my favorite of all the meals from this What's for Dinner video. I'm starting off by taking an 8-ounce petite top sirloin steak. The original recipe calls for ribeye. This just is what I had on hand, and it worked out perfectly because the pieces are so small you kind of can't tell if it's not the best quality of steak. But now I'm just going to slice that super thin, and a little tip for that is that you want it to be semi-frozen. So if yours isn't frozen already, mine was frozen and I defrosted it a little bit so that it could, like, I can cut through it still easily, but it was still firm. But if yours isn't frozen, I recommend freezing it for an hour to 2 hours. It will really help you get that nice thin cut that you're trying to go for here. And I just cut those into some slivers at first, but then I was like, okay, this doesn't look like a lot of meat, which it actually was a perfect amount for what I was doing, but it was better to cut it up into some smaller pieces so that it could kind of spread out more across the bread, as you'll see later. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut up all the other toppings for this, which is going to be 1 green bell pepper, 1 yellow onion, and you'll also need 4 ounces of mushrooms. I just had a 6-ounce container already sliced, but yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and slice up the green bell pepper and the onion. And at first, like, because the recipe just says slice, it doesn't say like how big or anything like that, so I kind of just cut them like how you would for like fajitas. But they were in the pan later, and I was like, no, these just look too big to like use as like a topping. If you're thinking of this, yeah, as a like a Philly cheesesteak, but it's almost like pizza style, so like you don't want huge pieces. And so while they were in the pan, I kind of just used my spatula to break them up into some smaller pieces, but it would be easier if you just did it all when you were already chopping them. And now you're going to go ahead and add in 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/8 teaspoon of pepper to your meat, as well as 1 tablespoon of canola oil. And just go ahead and stir that all together. And you're going to want to heat your cast iron skillet to a high heat. And you're going to go ahead and add this meat onto the skillet, and you're going to cook it for 2 minutes. And the recipe says to make sure not to stir or flip. And so I had to like spread it out best I could and then leave it alone for those 2 minutes, and it helps to kind of like brown it, give that little nice crust you want. And that actually worked out perfectly. I was worried that without flipping it, that the other sides wouldn't get so cooked. But now you're going to add in 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and at this point I did kind of give it a stir to get that all coated, as well as to take off the brown bits off the bottom of my pan a little bit. And some of those pieces that maybe still had some pink to them, I kind of flipped them to make sure that they were getting cooked. And it was just an additional like minute or so, not very long at all. And then you're just going to go ahead and remove your meat to another bowl or something like that, and add 2 tablespoons of butter to your pan. And then you're going to add in your bell peppers, onions, and your mushrooms, as well as your other 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. And here's, you'll see me breaking up those peppers and onions while they're still crunchy enough to just break up pretty easily. But again, it'd be better if you just did it when you were chopping them. And I'm just going to let those cook down for about 4 minutes. Next, the recipe calls for a loaf of French bread. I'm using a sourdough bread because it's just one that we really like. And you're going to cut that in half lengthwise. I'm just using my bread knife here. I didn't do the best job, and one side's a little higher up, and I didn't really like that because in my oven, that side will start to get like browned way quicker because it's higher than the other one. So I kind of took out some of those bread pieces and filled like the whole of that a little bit. You don't have to do that, of course. It's just I didn't want one side to have way less bread than the other. And now I'm going to go ahead and take 1/3 cup of mayonnaise and just spread that across of both sides of my bread. Next, you're going to need 8 ounces of sliced provolone cheese. And you're going to go ahead and lay them down on your bread, half of them first. So for me, this worked out to be about 3 of the slices on the bottom here, and I was actually short a piece, and I'll get to that part later. And now you're just going to go ahead and top your cheese with all of your steak as evenly as you can, and you're also going to top it with all of your cooked up vegetables and the remainder of your cheese. So apparently we had already opened up this provolone cheese and I didn't even notice that. So it was short one piece for some reason. So I kind of just spread out what I had provolone wise, and then I took a little bit of mozzarella and just kind of filled in the spaces a little bit, just so we know we had enough cheese to go across the top. And mozzarella worked just fine. It was a very complimentary cheese. If you don't have provolone or enough provolone, it would definitely work. And you were going to go ahead and bake this at 375 degrees for about 15 minutes, or until the top of your cheese is beginning to brown.
There's no place I'd rather be than here with you. That's all I need. There's no one I'd rather see close to me. That's all I need. If I could stay here, then I would stay here forever. If you're meant to, then let's be the best together.
And this is what it looks like out of the oven, nice, and the cheese is all nice and melted. And this bread was nice and crunchy, but it still had like a soft middle, but the outside was nice and crunchy, so that was a good texture, and it just had so much flavor, and it was really, really good. My boyfriend raved about this. We both love this so much. Like every bite we'd look at each other and be like, okay, this is so good. Like wow, we have to like definitely make this again. It's now being added to our rotation. Even better that it was super easy to make. This last meal is chicken tetrazzini. I'm actually going to be halving the recipe because I don't need as big of a batch of this, but I will still link the original recipe in the description box. So for this, I'm taking a 1/4 cup of melted butter into my bowl. It calls for originally I would need like 2 chicken breasts for what I'm doing by halving it, and I'm just using rotisserie chicken, but mine was frozen, so I had put it in this bowl to kind of like put in the microwave to like kind of warm it up a bit, even though I had defrosted it. And then there were parts that got too hot, so you'll see me kind of just using a fork to just break these apart because I don't want to burn my fingers. But yeah, I just want to shred those up into some smaller bites so that like the chicken can be throughout the dish a little bit better throughout the pasta. And then I'm adding in 1 cup of sour cream and 1 can of cream of chicken soup. I'm also going to be adding in 1/2 teaspoon of salt, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/4 cup of chicken broth that I just made by combining some chicken better than bouillon with some water. And then just give that all a good stir to combine all those ingredients together before adding your pasta, because you don't really want to like mush up your pasta too much and break it all up by having to stir too aggressively. So make sure to combine these ingredients first, and then you'll go ahead and add in your cooked up pasta. I'm using 8 ounces of spaghetti noodles. The original recipe calls for linguine. I just substituted spaghetti noodles because spaghetti noodles is what I've had this type of meal with before, and that's how I like it. But they are a very, very similar shape in pasta. Since I'm halving my recipe, I'm not using a full 9x13 baking dish. I'm using one that's smaller. Don't quite know the measurements of this, but it is smaller than a 9x13. And I just sprayed that with a little bit of oil on the bottom of the pan. I'm just going to go ahead and pour in the noodle creamy mixture to that, and just spread that out across the bottom of the pan. I'm adding the full 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese that the original recipe called for, and this is grated Parmesan cheese. And then you'll need, well, if you're halving this, you're going to need a cup of mozzarella cheese. I didn't really measure. I kind of just have this 8-ounce bag here, and I just put it all on top, and to my heart's desire, I just made sure that I had enough cheese for the top, which was pretty much the entire bag, and that worked out perfectly for me. I sprinkled a little bit of Italian seasoning on top. You can see it there out of the oven, nice and golden brown, and this was very tasty and delicious. We really liked it. I really liked using the rotisserie chicken. I've had this before with regular just chicken breast. I love the flavor that the rotisserie added to this, as well as how easy it was to do that. I already had frozen rotisserie in my freezer, so that was really great. And I served this with some garlic bread rounds, as well as a garden salad with like tomatoes and cucumber, and my favorite Brianna's Caesar dressing, and it was very good all together. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss out on any future What's for Dinner videos. And I hope you all are having an amazing week.